It seems like a repetitive theme. Wizards releasing a deck that has really cool art, great reprint value, all through Secret Lair. Something that collectors, fans, EDH players, Magic players in general, they all want to get their hands on. And yet, totally unavailable. The Goblinstorm Secret Lair sold out within 34 minutes of it going live, which meant that many fans were not able to pick up any copy whatsoever. And if you think, well, I could always just go to the secondary market and find one on TCG Player, nope, you also can't do that unless you want to spend up to 3 times as much as the original MSRP of the deck. And so what are you going to do? Well, I just happened to create a deck. A Goblin Storm you can actually afford and actually buy, albeit without the really, really cool art. But Zada itself is a commander that I originally brewed in 2019 because it was an exceptionally fun deck. And because I found that it was a deck that was able to storm off exceptionally quickly, and it had some pretty fun play patterns. And so I've designed and brewed a deck that is essentially a better version of a Zada deck that is substantially cheaper for less than $50 USD. I've posted the link in the description to this particular deck where you can see all the different cards in it, and I've organized them based off of what their role is in the deck. So hopefully you take a look, and maybe if you see that this is a commander that's for you, perhaps you'll get one yourself. So if you look at the deck itself, the commander is Zada, Hedron Grider, who's a 4-mana 3/3 legendary creature goblin ally that says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Zada Hedron Grinder, copy that spell for each other creature you control that the spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures. A Zada deck has essentially 2 different lines that it's trying to achieve at the same time. The first is a spell slinger strategy based around casting a spell that targets specifically only Zada and then getting some type of value out of it. And then the second half of the deck is basically trying to run different token creators so that way you have a bunch of little goblins or elementals or whatever, little 1/1 tokens that then allow you to basically storm off. A Zada deck, for a mono red deck, actually has a lot of card draw. I have 13 pieces of card draw here, and the most expensive one is 2 mana. Basically, because the game plan is you create a bunch of tokens, and then you cast any one of these spells that specifically targets Zada, and then you'll copy it, depending on how many creatures you have. So, for example, Ancestral Anger is a bulk rare, a bulk common, draft chaff, whatever you want to call it. 1 mana sorcery. It says target creature gains trample and gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of cards named Ancestral Anger in your graveyard, which is stone cold, unplayable in Commander because you can only have one of them. However, it has this wonderful line of text draw card. So if you play this with the Zada on the field, you will get the original spell, you'll get to draw one, but if you have 5 tokens on the field, this spell is going to get copied 5 times, one for each of the additional tokens, which means instead of it being a 1 mana draw 1, which is just not that great, it's a cantrip, instead now it's a 1 mana draw 6, which is ridiculous. Also, it gives all of your team +1/+0. Same with Fist of Flame, draw a card until end of turn, target creature gains trample, which is really great. It gets +1/+0 until for each card you've drawn this turn. So basically with your entire board, not only does it give a pump, not only does it give a trample, but it also draws a card for each creature you control. So each of these are really easy to use, really, really cheap. And so the goal is to make a bunch of tokens, play these cards, draw a lot of cards, and keep going. I have here 3 copy spells. These spells will either be used to copy Zada, which will then just copy your entire board, and with the legend rule, you'll just keep one of the copies of Zada, or it's to copy a particular spell that you want to cast, a spell that's really important. So imagine if you copied, if I cast a Twin Flame targeting my Zada, and then I have already cast Twin Inferno, which means that now the next spell I cast is going to be copied, and so then I'm going to copy the Twin Flame, which is then going to copy target the Zada, then it's going to do everything else, which means basically you just go nuts with it. I'll save these 2 fun for later. I have 36 lands in the deck, 33 mountains, which probably is too many, 1 Mishra's Factory, 1 Dwarven Mine, and 1 Blinkmoth Nexus. Dwarven Mine's here because it creates a token when you play it, and if you have 3 or more mountains, it comes into play untapped. Mishra's Factory, it's 1 mana to turn into a 2/2, and Blinkmoth Nexus, 1 mana to turn into a 1/1. Really, you just want them to be creatures, so that way they work with Zada. I have 11 token producers in the deck. I have Dragon Fodder, Mog War Marshal, Empty the Warrens, Krenko's Command, Goblin War Party, Young Pyromancer, Mog Alarm, Hordling Outburst, Goblin Instigator, you see a pair of goblins, and Krenko, Street Kingpin. Krenko I put in the deck because when you get all the boosts and the power increases of this deck, and then you attack with it, you create a ridiculous number of tokens. Mog War Marshal, or Mog Alarm, I put in the deck because it's free, and we like free tokens. And Empty the Warrens is a really great Storm card, which if I've played 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 spells a turn, which is entirely possible, now all of a sudden I'm just going to get a ridiculous number of goblins. I've also thrown in some just regular power-up cards, not as many because it's not. These cards are really only good at powering up my creatures. Most of the other cards, usually the draw spells, end up boosting my creature's power a little bit anyways. Titan Strength gives a Scry. Samus Sprint gives a Scry. Temur Battle Rage gives Double Strike and Trample, which is really good. Same with Monstrous Rage, it'll give a Trample. Downhill Charge. I love having this card as a little just of a secret tech where you're attacking with it, you just sacrifice a mana, and bam, all of a sudden you give all your team +4/+0, which is great. Siege Smash, which gives either my creatures +3, +2, and Trample, or I can destroy an artifact in a key moment if I really need to blow one up. I get rid of it. And Witch's Mark not only lets me do some filtering, get some better cards, but also then I get to create a Wicked Roll token. So if and when my board gets wiped, I then will just be able to do a bunch of damage to people. I only have 2 protection spells in here because most of the spells that I would be using in a mono red deck to protect my commander don't really work unless I'm willing to pay a lot extra. And this is a $50 budget deck, so I'm not going to do that. Goblin Chirurgian. Interesting, it's not surgeon, but Chirurgian. Man, I cannot say that today. It has an ability where I can sacrifice a goblin to regenerate a target creature. In this case, it's regenerate a target Zada, who is going to be asking for a lot of hate. And Untimely Malfunction, which lets me destroy an artifact, change the target of a target spell with an ability with a single target, or 1 or 2 target creatures can't block this turn. Basically, this card says Protect Zada. I also have 18 pieces of ramp because I want to be able to ramp quickly into Zada. So I have as many 2 costing mana sources that I reasonably can that are also creatures because I want to have as many creature sources of ramp, which does, yes, admittedly mean that I will get blown out really badly by board wipes. However, the upside with Zada is you want to go fast and you're going to have a fun time, and you're not going to be here for a very long time, and hopefully no one else at the table will be either. But the idea is all of these creatures double as ramp, but also they are objects for our Zada plan. So I only have a few mana rocks just in case I get blown out. I also have some rituals. I have Inner Fire, I have Battle Hymn, and Mana Geyser. Also, Skirk Prospector, when you're creating all these different goblin tokens, all of a sudden he just create a ridiculous infinite amount of mana. Also, I have some treasure makers. Now, treasure in this deck is really cool because with Zada's ability, I can use these cards to target Zada, and it will copy itself from my entire board. So, Involuntary Employment, for example, says gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste until the end of turn, create a treasure token, which means if I have 10 tokens on the field plus Zada, I just created 11 treasure for 4 mana. And if any of those creatures are mana dorks, I can then reuse the mana dorks. Sudden Breakthrough, same thing. I'll just create a ridiculous number. It basically says for 2 mana, create a treasure token for each creature you control, which is great. Trader's Greed is a little bit different. It doesn't create treasure, but I want to put it in here. Anyways, where basically it says each of your creatures gives you 2 mana of any one color, which is pretty good. Same with Reckless Ransacking. Furnace Rains is a little bit different, but it says whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or battle, then create a treasure token, which is a very, very cool effect, and especially since how much tramples in this deck. And then there's Stormkill Artist, which says whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, create a treasure token, which means that with all the Zada shenanigans that are going on, this card is secretly the MVP. Now, I've saved the best for last. It's also where all the expensive cards come from. There are 2 here. These are my game enders. Kai Zev's Expertise is the cheaper version of this. For 3 mana, it says gain control of target creature or vehicle until the end of turn. We've seen this ability before. Untap it, it gains haste until end of turn. This is great. The second line of the text says you may cast a card with converted mana 2 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. That's basically almost every single card in my deck is costing 2 or less. With that being said, if I target my Zada with this, it then says for each creature I control, I may cast a card with converted mana cost 2 or less from my hand without playing its mana cost. which creates a ridiculous game-ending cycle which likely will lead in my victory. Also, the card that's $13 here, the most expensive card in the deck, if you want to go super budget, cut this and add something like a Goblin Electromancer or something like that. It says, untap target creature. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase and a splashback of 2 and a red. This says, for each creature you control, you take that many extra combat steps. So if I have 5 tokens plus Zada, I take 6 extra combats, 6 extra untap, 6 extra main phases, which is a lot, which I think is a very, very cool card in the deck. So, especially with all of the untap shenanigans that I have down here, things that let me untap all my creatures and untap all of my stuff, it's an amazing, amazing card. So that's my Zada deck. It is $48.30. If you want to make it cheaper, I'd get rid of the Seize the Day. I'd put in something else, like a Goblin Electromancer, as I said earlier. The goal of the deck is not to ping people to death. The goal of the deck is to make a gigantic army of tokens and then to trample over you with a huge amount of damage. So tell me what you think in the comment section below. What would you recommend me cutting from my deck? Do you think the Seize the Day plan is a little bit too much win more, or do you think that it'd be a cool way to end the game? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And